Whoa, buddy, put that thing back in its holster. We haven't gone anywhere.
I don't understand.
Check out the MichaelDukesShow.com for information on how to get access to the podcast.
Welcome to the party, pal.
The Michael Dukes Show.
I have 2 guns, one for each of you.
Firearms Friday.
As Thomas Jefferson stated, it is the right and duty of the people to be at all times armed. Say hello to my little friend.
I say that the Second Amendment is, in order of importance, the First Amendment. The right to keep and bear arms is the one right that allows rights to exist at all.
The Michael Dukes Show. The right to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Firearms.
From my cold, dead hands.
Friday.
It's my rifle, it's my gun, this is for fighting, it's for fun.
Firearms Friday.
Firearms Friday, that one day a week that we dedicate to the Second Amendment, to gun rights, to talks about firearms laws, rules, news, tricks, tips, tactics. Not nearly enough coffee here yet this morning. Good morning, my friends. Welcome to our favorite day of the week. We are ready to rock and roll on this beautiful Friday. Although it's so foggy, I can't even see the transmitter tower outside. That's how foggy it is. It's just one of those things. But welcome to it. We're ready to go for this great day. Lots of news to cover, lots of headlines. We also are going to be joined here on our favorite day by one of our favorite commentators, JD Tuccille from Reason Magazine, contributing editor for Reason Magazine, is going to come on and talk with us about California and New York and all the other stories that are going on out there related to the Second Amendment and more. And we're going to jump into that, plus some other headlines, some crazy ones, including Glock's response to the fact that Maryland is trying to outlaw them. It's it's pretty amazing what's going on. Maryland has been working hard on this, and Glock kind of does a mic drop response in their brief back on this. We'll talk about that as well. Maybe the latest on the SIG 320, that shooting in Anchorage. I don't know if you saw the video of the shooting outside the nightclub in Anchorage. Wow. I mean, it was pretty crazy. We could talk about that as well. And then, of course, as always, we're going to finish up with Willie Waffle from the New York area, who's going to come in and give us our weekend movie review, as he does every week. So welcome to the show. Welcome to becoming an unofficial member of the 6 o'clock club. That is the it's like it's the club where you get all the bragging rights. It's like whose line is it anyway, right? Where the rules don't matter. We make up the rules and the points don't count. It's just some bragging rights. You're all members of the 6 o'clock club, no matter where you are. Thanks for getting up and joining us. And no, Bill, you cannot go back to bed. That's the Bill is asking for permission to return to bed. That's not going to happen. If I have to be here, then you have to be here. All right. We're ready to jump into this. So let's get started with JD Tuccille, who's waiting in the wings for us from Reason Magazine. He writes every week. By the way, if you don't sign up for the Rattler, you're not a good listener to this show. All right. The Rattler is the weekly newsletter that fills your email box. It doesn't fill. It's like once or twice a week, an article jumps into your email box. Okay. So you don't even have to go out and look for JD. He finds you wherever you are, or something like that. JD Tuccille, contributing editor for Reason Magazine, joins us. Hello, my friend. How are you?
Doing well. Good morning.
Hey, thanks for coming on and joining us. Just another beautiful day. Can you believe it's August already? What the heck happened, man? I just seemed like yesterday it was January 1st and now it's August.
I find that as I get older, time moves faster, and I don't think I like it.
I actually looked that up one time because I'm like, I feel like, and it's actually a scientific thing, because when you're young, you don't have that much experience, so time seems to move slower. But the older you get, it's weird. But you're right. I mean, it's just like, I remember when summer used to last forever, right? Summer felt like it was a year, and now it's like summer goes by in like 3.5 seconds. And so I definitely feel it. Well, JD, thanks for joining us today and being part of the program. I want to talk about several of the big stories today, but you covered one that we touched on last week a little bit. That it was astonishing to me. For folks who don't know, California used to have, up until just recently because of this court decision, they used to have a law that if you wanted to buy ammunition, anytime you wanted to buy ammunition, you had to go on your hands and knees and beg the state to be able to do it. You had to pass a background check. You had to pay a fee. You had to wait. And then you had a limited amount of time after you were approved to go down and buy the ammunition. This happened and you couldn't buy ammunition out of state. In fact, they would send police officers to squat in Cabela's and Bass Pro Shops in Nevada and Arizona with cameras to watch for California license plates, and then they ding you when you came. I mean, some crazy stuff. JD, you live there in Arizona. I mean, you probably saw some of this craziness there yourself.
Yeah, I mean, I live far enough from the border that I don't actually have to run into California law enforcement agents, because I'd be tempted to do something interesting to their vehicles or them. But I do know a fair number of Californians across the border, and may go back with their cars more heavily laden than they arrived. I mean, it's a common practice. It's a pain, because if you were already owned a registered firearm or were on the list as a gun owner in California, the price of having a background check recently went up to $5. So every time a registered gun owner in California wanted to buy ammo. It was a $5 processing fee to do the background check. And as you mentioned, I mean, you had a short period of time to buy it. If you weren't already listed, it was $19. Still would be every time you wanted to buy ammunition. So of course you're tempted to buy it in bulk because you must have pay $19 every time you're stocking up to go to the range. So it's ridiculous. But yeah, I mean, a lot of Californians cross the border because they have to evade that nonsense.
Right. Well, and we read stories. I mean, I must have been a year and a half ago, we were reading a story about a guy who got busted coming back from, I can't remember if it was Nevada or Arizona. He'd gone over there. He'd been with some friends. They'd gone shooting. He bought a bunch of ammo at whatever store, it was a Cabela's or something. And after he got done playing with his friends, he went back home and he got stopped by the highway patrol on the way out, and they had undercover vehicles at the sporting goods store in another state taking pictures of them loading gear or and license plates and everything. And I was just like, California is in other states operating like there's some kind of CIA sting operation. I mean, this is the madness that is California, but no longer. Give us the rundown here. You got this article you wrote here a week or two ago talking about the brand new law the brand new decision that has basically cleared it out for Californians.
Yeah, I mean, this is a really good and nicely reasoned decision. This was following a lawsuit by Kim Rhode, the Olympic shooting champion, backed by the California State Rifle and Pistol Association. And they sued. The background check was mandated by Prop 63, which was passed by California voters, and save us all from California voters, please, but passed by California voters in 2016. And Kim Rhode has been filed the suit fairly quickly with the support of the Rifle and Pistol Association. And it has gone through the courts a couple of times now, each time winning at the district level, where district court says, yeah, no kidding, you need ammunition to exercise your Second Amendment rights, and you can't run a background check just to purchase ammunition. So no, this law violates the Constitution. But this latest run through came after the Brune decision came down from the United States Supreme Court. And so a three-judge panel at the appeals level, the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals in California, said, and this time we really mean it, pointing out that the that the law severely burdens the exercise of Second Amendment rights that are protected by the Second Amendment, and that it cannot be enforced. It's a significant violation, and it's a severe burden on civil liberties. So the law is voided. Now, that does not mean that Californians are quite yet out from under. The state the Attorney General's office, Rob Bonta, issued guidance to state vendors saying that the law is still in effect while they process it and until they issue a mandate. No one seems to know what this means for out-of-state vendors who sell by mail. Some are still selling, some are not. It depends on how much they feel like taking the Attorney General of California seriously. But state vendors are still required to run background checks until the state gets around to acknowledging the federal court decision.
Yeah, no, what I found to be most interesting in this opinion was a couple things. I mean, first and foremost, the judge Ikuda said specifically that the Supreme Court indicated that the Second Amendment protects operable arms, and because arms are inoperable without ammunition, the right to keep and bear arms necessarily encompasses the right to have ammunition. That's really, because that was always the fear. Oh, we'd have the guns, but then they just go over. Remember when Hillary Clinton she went after the ammunition manufacturers and they were going to put them out of business through OSHA OSHA regs and all that kind of stuff. And that was our fear. We'd have a glorified doorstop. But this is one of the first times I've ever seen where they basically said it has to be an operable firearm and without ammo. So therefore, ergo, it's all under the Second Amendment. I thought that was an amazing part of that.
It's a great ruling for exactly that reason. It means that a lot of the end runs they've discussed, primarily the ammunition one. Well, we'll put $1,000 tax on each round of ammunition. We'll ban ammunition sales to civilians. You could own your gun, but all of that goes by the wayside. It means that the firearms can not only be owned, but they have to be usable. And that means that this is a very strong decision that should knock down not just this law, but should be a warning to laws in other states, the restrictions in other states where they have No one's gone quite as far as California, but New York certainly restricts it to other states. And there have been proposals, of course, as you mentioned, to try to make the Second Amendment a joke, to make gun ownership a joke by making the guns inoperable.
Right. Well, what I found interesting in California was one that you had to do this every time. I found that was just, I mean, so kind of, it was very, very, it was very, very obvious that this was an intentional stumbling block, because even if you had a California gun license, even if you were already registered with your firearm, even if you had all this kind of stuff, if you had a concealed I mean, it was only $1, right? If you had a permit, then it went to $5. If you didn't have everything, as you just said, it was $19, but that means they already know who you are. And it's not like a wink and a nod. You could show your concealed carry card or your FOID card or whatever they call it, and you could just get the ammo. They were doing it every time. And like you said, this law went into effect. It was almost immediately challenged, but the law went into effect in 2016. So it's been 10 years they've been fighting this, and the state's been putting them off. And as you said, they've won every time, but it's every injunction, and then it gets appealed, and then it gets appealed. And this is lawfare. This is what we're talking about, where they get a law in there and they know that people, they're just going to drag it out for years. It'll be 2 decades before a law gets repealed.
And it's obvious that it's a law that was targeted at recreational and peaceful law-abiding shooters too. Even if we pretend that criminals are going to buy their gun, buy their ammunition legally and jump through all the hoops, you don't need a lot of ammunition to knock over a liquor store or to shoot a competing gang member. What you need to buy bulk ammunition for and to keep on going back is because you want to go to the range, you want to keep your skills up, you want to go hunting. And that's when you have to go through hundreds of rounds of ammunition and buy more. A criminal could probably last for years on a single box of ammunition, if even that much. Because all you need to do in most cases is show it, and people will back down and do what you want them to do. So it's a law that was intended to affect law-abiding gun owners, peaceful gun owners.
Right, which is a typical California situation. Yeah. What else was ironic was, again, it was pointed out that you quote Gavin Newsom at the end there, where he says, today's decision is a slap in the face to the progress California has made in recent years to keep its communities safer from gun violence. Californians voted to require background checks on ammunition, and their voices should matter. And you make the very valid point. No, they shouldn't. That's what a constitutional republic is about, protecting not just your individual rights, but from the government, but from the mob, right? That's what this is about.
Well, can you imagine if the voters of some state passed voted to ban criticizing President Trump? How would Gavin Newsom view that? I mean, of course, an individual right is an individual right. It doesn't matter if it's one tyrant who wants to suppress it or a million tyrants who want to suppress it. So the fact that a majority of California voters are in favor of suppressing the self-defense rights of their fellows doesn't matter. They don't get to do that. That's what individual rights mean.
We've already seen what the collective intelligence of California voters looks like, and we don't need that anywhere around here for sure. Where does this go now, JD?
Well, this was a 3-judge panel of the Ninth Circuit, so at the very least, it's the state's definitely going to appeal, I would say. Actually, I shouldn't say that. I assume the state's going to appeal, and they're going to want to bring it up to the full panel of the full Ninth Circuit court. They have a chance of winning there. The Ninth Circuit tends to be left-leaning and has a reputation for doing so, but it also has a libertarian streak, as is seen in this particular ruling and the reasoning in it. The judges in this case didn't just say, well, we have to defer to the Supreme Court. They said, no, this is real. It has to be, and they went through the ruling, they went through the reasoning on why a gun must be operable in order for the Second Amendment right to be a real right. So there's a libertarian streak there that would not guarantee a win at the Ninth Circuit level. But the risk for California, if they appeal too, is that then it goes to the U.S. Supreme Court if they keep this up. And the Supreme Court has been issuing a series of strongly pro Second Amendment, pro self-defense right rulings. And if they lose at that level, that's game over nationally. That means that they don't get to do this ever again. So I think they'll appeal. I think they'll take that risk because for the political gain that they get for doing that, but it's not guaranteed.
Yeah. In the meanwhile, California or outside of California, Brownells and Lucky Gunner and all these other online ammunition stores ammunition is flying off the shelves to head. There's like a convoy of trucks headed straight to California right now from all these, because up to now they couldn't buy it from out of state. Now they're able to do that. So
that's how I learned about the decision. Is I had a flurry of emails in my inbox from all the vendors I deal with say, if you're a Californian, you can now buy online. I was like, wow, what just happened?
So what's going on? Tell me what's happening. It's crazy. All right, JD Tuccille from Reason Magazine is our guest. We're going to continue with him here in a moment. Don't go anywhere. The Michael Dukes Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free thinking radio. We return with more right after this. Don't go anywhere.
Running on 100% pure beard power. Oh, also some coffee. We dip our beard in coffee.
Nice beard.
The Michael Dukes Show.
All right, we're back from the break here, or back in the break, I guess I should say, with JD Tuccille from Reason Magazine. Frank just said, we don't need California ideology in Alaska. Did you forget about Anchorage? No, I didn't forget about Anchorage. We don't need more of that. We've already got enough California light going on down in Anchorage. We don't need any more of that. Brian said, and remind me who is paying for all this legal stalling? I mean, that's the point, right? I mean, that's the point of lawfare. They utilize government as a bludgeon. They use your tax dollars to then fight back against you over and over and over again, JD, right? I mean, this has been going, California is famous for this. This is the whole safe spaces, gun registry, pistol things, all this. I mean, this is what they do.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, think about this. Every time you challenge one of these laws, you recruit somebody. In this case, it was Kim Rhode, who's a plaintiff in the case. You've got to, you have to have either volunteer attorneys or paid attorneys to pursue the case. This involves a fair amount of money. So you need donors. You've got grassroots people who are voluntarily giving their money up and contributing money to make sure these legal challenges can go through year after year, law after law. Meanwhile, as the state of California or the government of Maryland or in New York, all they got to do is mug their citizens for some more money or run up some more deficit spending. And they have an unending source of income in order to fund their defenses of these laws. Even if they know they're going to lose in the end, it's no great burden for them to assign a couple of attorneys and pay them with money that was just stolen from the taxpayers. So it's the government always has an advantage in these cases where they're defending laws that they know are undefendable.
Yeah, no, and that's the problem, and we've seen this again in a variety. They put laws, and we've seen them, and recently we've seen them put laws on the books that they know are not constitutional. They know will not but they know that it will also take a decade or more and millions of dollars of private funds to try and fight the government over issues like that. And Rob Bonta, the Attorney General of the state of California, he is the worst for this kind of stuff because he is defending absolutely every and all laws in regards to gun rights, and with some of the most ridiculous arguments. I mean, St. Benitez, as we like to call him, the judge there in California who's ruled against Bonta a half a dozen times now, has even chastised them that they're reaching so far into ludicrousness that it's almost embarrassing.
Bonta and a lot of his colleagues, but Bonta is overt about this, very clearly does not care about constitutional protections for individual liberty. I mean, he cares about a vision of society as he thinks it ought to be. And the Constitution of the U.S. or the Constitution of California, these are just barriers, hurdles he has to overcome in order to get there. There's also a political aspect to this. He knows that if he plays to the mob, there's that thin strip in California. The bad part of California really is this thin urban strip running along the coast. That's where a lot of the voters are concentrated. And if he's defending California's culture and its rules and making them safe in their minds, he wins votes. He wins votes for himself and his friends, even if he loses in the courts in the end. Because in the end, he can point to those reactionary judges who are turning down our common sense laws. Sure. And it doesn't matter if anything is constitutional about those laws whatsoever, because the votes are generated, the outrage is generated, and there's political capital to be gained.
Meanwhile, burning taxpayer revenue by the truckload doing this at the same time, because again, it doesn't matter. We the people are paying for our own oppression, says Jeffrey in the chat room. That's exactly right.
Yep.
And I mean, this is a reminder, folks. The state is not your friend. That is the thing. Reminder: the state is not your friend. Quit acting like it's gonna, that's how it's gonna work out and everything else. All right, I want to talk a little bit here about the New York shooting, JD. And I know you didn't write about this. Jacob Sullum did. He's written a couple pieces about this, and I think overall we need to talk about the ludicrous calls that we're seeing now, because there's more and more calls for, oh, this is because other states have weak gun laws, and blah, blah. I want to get into that. So if you've got some thoughts, I want you to share that with us as well. But we're about 13 seconds out right now, so we're going to rejoin in just a second. Folks, do me a favor. Please like and share, like and follow, subscribe, ring the bell, do all the YouTube-y stuff, whatever we need to do to get things ready to rock and roll, and we'll bring more folks aboard. The Michael Duke Show, common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio.
Public enema number one. Oh, wait, sorry. Public enemy number one, which makes more sense. On the other hand, he's a little bit of a pain in the Michael Duke Show.
All right, welcome back to the program. We are continuing now with JD Tuccille, contributing editor for Reason Magazine. He joins us today to talk a little bit. We just finished talking about California, which is, a kind of ground zero for a lot of this gun control stuff. The other state that is similarly one of the most stringent gun control states in the country is, of course, New York. And if you haven't been under a rock, you know that this week in New York, there was a shooting there on the island of Manhattan where a disturbed individual ended up getting into a building and a facility with a AR-15 and killed 4 people on the way there. Now, completely expected, but the immediate reaction from Kate Hochul, the governor of New York, and everything else was, this is not our fault. New York has the most stringent gun control laws in the world. It was because this guy came from somewhere else and brought the gun in, and so that means we need more gun control to fix it, which is, again, the most ludicrous thing I've ever heard, because, again, he busted so many laws just coming into New York with just to transport. He had to go through New Jersey as well. I mean, JD, give me your thoughts on this.
Well, this is insane. I mean, New York has restrictive gun control laws, but as is always the case with so-called assault weapon laws, they're based on cosmetic features. So she claimed you can't buy an AR-15 in New York. Yes, you can. It'll be ugly because it's got a weird stock on it, because it's got to avoid having a pistol grip, and it can't have a barrel shroud, and it can't have these other features. But functionally, it's a semi-automatic rifle. And you know what? If you don't want to have a mutant AR in New York, you can buy a Mini 14 ranch rifle, which looks pretty like it's got a wood stock on it, but it's functionally identical. It's a semi-automatic rifle. It shoots the same ammunition. So she's full of it there. That's absolute nonsense that you can't buy one of these rifles in New York. She also claimed that he was able to get this because he has a concealed carry permit. That was really precious, because concealed carry permits have nothing to do with long arms, not unless you got big wide trouser legs, I guess. So it's that was about as silly a thing as I can imagine. I mean, she was stumbling her way through trying to explain why New York laws, if everybody had them, wouldn't permit a nut job to victimize people. Meanwhile, of course, New York is full of stories about nut jobs victimizing people. And I'm sorry this one came from Nevada and did it, but you've got homegrown nuts in New York all the time, making the news, doing terrible things. And I don't wish that on anybody. I don't care where the nuts come from. But the same week she makes this announcement, Eric Adams announces that they just took 3,000 guns off the street of New York. It's already illegal in New York to do it. They took how's those laws working out for you? Well, he also said, and I found this fascinating and kind of exhilarating in a certain way, that they're fighting a losing battle because of 3D printed firearms. That homemade guns are constituting a larger and larger percentage of the take of confiscated firearms. You know what? It's always, prohibitions are always a losing battle. You create, if the demand is there, you're going to create a market for what is forbidden, and somebody is going to step up and fill that market, again, satisfy demand, whether it's within the law or illegally. It simply doesn't matter.
Right.
So New York
Right.
will always have guns. It just won't be legal guns if they keep the laws that they have.
Right. No, exactly it. And even though the number of, so-called ghost guns or printed guns has gone up, it's still a fraction of it. But again, life is what's the old David Attenborough Jurassic Park, life will find a way. I mean, that's the thing. It's the same thing. You create a scarcity, you make something taboo or verboten, it's going to happen. And in fact, what you do, and what we learned from prohibition, is that you will embolden and then empower criminal organizations, because they're going to do it. Because, by the way, they're criminal organizations. They don't obey the law. That's the thing here. And of course, they're using this at every opportunity right now to tout these kind of bans all over the country. And nothing would. He killed 4 people. He could have done it with a handgun. He just happened.
He absolutely could have.
Yeah. Go ahead.
It doesn't matter which firearm he chose. He happened to choose an AR because they're very popular in the United States. But it could have been a shotgun. It could have been a revolver. I mean, the number of people killed, the number of shots fired, it really wouldn't take much in order to do that. And it's awful either way. I mean, I'm sorry that people were murdered by a lunatic, but he could have purchased a firearm that would have done it in New York, jumped through all the hoops. He had passed the background check to get a CCW in Nevada. So that means he would have probably satisfied the same law in New York. They didn't have access to any more information than the authorities in Nevada did. So if he's going to do it, he's going to do it. And there's really no way to stop that. Well, except I would hope that you'd make it easier for people to defend themselves. They don't have to cower behind pillars in a lobby.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and I think Alan Gottlieb over at the Second Amendment Foundation and the Citizens Committee for the Right to Keep and Bear Arms, they sent out a press release on Wednesday talking about this, because everybody was, clamoring for more gun control. And he makes all these points. He said, the crime occurred in the middle of Manhattan, where local and state law makes it virtually impossible to legally carry a defensive firearm. Again, proving that New York's policies are literally dead wrong. He drove clear across the country to commit a horrible crime, transiting states that didn't allow the so-called assault weapons, including New Jersey as well. And he said, look, guns are not the problem. We just had this knife attack at the Walmart, I guess. 11 people were and by the way, if anybody was watching those headlines, you notice that you didn't hear the fact that the knife-wielding maniac was stopped by a private citizen with a firearm. That's how he got stopped. But that's not covered in any of the news stories. Any of the mainstream news stories. The local stories covered it, but none of the main players. It's like it's a conspiracy, man. They don't want you to know that private citizens with guns can help make you safe.
And they say that we're supposed to depend on the police to defend us, except in this case in Manhattan, literally the first person taken out was a police officer in uniform.
Right.
And then that was it. The second person was the security guard. So how is that, depending on the police, working out? I mean, it's not working out very well. I mean, that's a very thin line, and once it's penetrated, it's done, unless you give people the ability to fight back.
It was a hardened building, right? I mean, that's the thing. I mean, this is a hardened building. They had safe rooms built into the floors where they were going. I mean, this building was a high security building in downtown Manhattan, with security guards and police and everything else. And like you said, just depending on them is obviously not working out. And this is tragic. I mean, these people losing their lives is tragic, but you can't punish law-abiding citizens for the actions of a madman or a criminal or both.
Which is why, I mean, you see people like Governor Hochul reaching for absurd arguments and making false claims about what it means, what's involved in owning it and using an AR-15 in order to try to make her point, because she can't defend her state's own laws. They would not have and did not prevent this kind of a crime. And they don't prevent the crime you see in the streets of New York every day. But the laws that she champions do make it much more difficult, legally fraught for people to defend themselves. I'm going to be in New York City next week, and one of the concerns is, okay, if something happens, what do we do? And it's big boy rules. If you want to defend yourself, you got to do something.
Well, and that puts, and I think that's an important point, because that puts law-abiding citizens in a conundrum. I want to protect myself. I want to be able to rely on myself and not the police, who would be minutes away, right? And so what do? Do I follow the law to the letter, or do I become an outlaw to protect myself? Law-abiding citizen, not with no ill intent, but want to have the ability to defend myself. Do I want to, what do I do? I remember I traveled through the part of Northern California at one point. This is probably 10, 12 years ago. And I had to travel through, and I carried a gun. Now I was breaking the law. That's what it was. I was breaking the law, but I was going through a 100-mile stretch of California on the way into Nevada. And you know what? I did it because I wanted to be able to protect myself wherever I was at. It's forcing law-abiding citizens to make a choice. Do you want to be safe? Do you want to protect yourself? And that goes back to that whole kind of Irish democracy thing, where people decide that the law is ridiculous, and they're going to do what they can to protect themselves.
Oh, absolutely. When I worked in New York, I worked the night shift for a while, a very unpleasant while. And there was no real easy public transportation that went crosstown, which is what I had to do to get from my apartment over to my job. So I was walking across, a sketchy area at 3 o'clock in the morning. I carried a gun illegally too. I did the same thing. It was big boy rules. I was worried, and it was worth taking the legal risk in order to, maintain my life.
Right.
And I'm glad that it worked out for me. And too many people are put in that position.
Well, what's the old adage? Better to be judged by 12 than carried by 6, because that's it. Would you rather face the legal challenge of being, taken with it? And by the way, that's why concealed means concealed, folks. All right. That's what that's about. Concealed means concealed for a reason. But yeah, at that point, you're like, I'll take my chances. If I have to use it, then I'll have to explain myself, but at least I'll be alive to do so. And that was the problem with these poor folks in this building in Manhattan. This guy had a TBI of something from being a high school footballer. He apparently was going after the NFL offices that were in the building. BlackRock had offices in the building as well. So there was, first there was some hype rah from people on the left for the fact that somebody from BlackRock died because they're the evil empire or whatever, which is just, that's the Luigi effect, right? After he killed, he becomes some kind of folk hero, and the ladies all want to rub up against him because he's some kind of folk hero for ending somebody who it makes no sense to me. But this is the hypocrisy and the celebratoriness on the left, yet at the same time they want to then criticize anybody who wants to be able to defend themselves.
Well, and that's actually a really great point. Is there was a report that came out from, I think it's the Network Contagion Institute. It's a project of a couple of universities. It came out in the spring, and it was called Assassination Culture, and it's about how there's now a social permission. If you believe really, really strongly in your political views, the social permission to not only cheer for killing people, but to say it's okay for killing people. It gives permission for people to use assassination as a means of achieving their goals. And the Luigi thing is a big example they cited of that, although we've seen an awful lot of it. The assassination, the killing of those state representatives. There was a city councilman doused with gasoline this week and set on fire. We're seeing a huge amount of this. So when you get social permission to use violence to make a point, which is what this guy was apparently doing in New York with targeting and then mistargeting the NFL, once you have that social permission, the tools are secondary, because the people are going to find a way. They'll find a way to do it, whether it's pushing someone on the subway tracks, making a gun, as Luigi did, using a gallon of gasoline, or buying something commercially. The social permission is actually the most dangerous part of this, where it becomes okay to make your point by killing people.
Doesn't this remind you of Italy and the Operation Gladio and the whole the summer of bullets and lead and all that kind of stuff? It starts to remind you.
The anni di piombo, the years of lead, lasted for over a decade.
Yeah, it's crazy. JD Tuccille Reason Magazine is our guest. We're going to continue here in just a moment. Don't go anywhere. We'll return and talk some more about where we are on the Second Amendment, what his thoughts are, where we go from here, some of the other cases, anything else that comes to his mind. JD Tuccille. We return with more right after this. The Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free thinking radio.
We're broadcasting live through a series of tubes.
Allowing all of these entities to provide streaming stuff going on the internet.
Well, it's kind of hard to explain. Sorry. Streaming live every weekday morning on Facebook Live and MichaelDukesShow.com.
Okay, JD Tuccille, our guest, Reason Magazine. Terry says, don't go, JD. Don't go to New York.
It's family. I'm an Italian from New York, and I've got extended family there. So it's going to be the highest concentration of WAPs in one place since the last Godfather movie wrapped. So again, because I got to go to a wedding. So it is what it is.
Might make the world tilt off its axis. You put so many Italians in one place, it'll be fun. But yeah, I mean, that's the thing. The old axiom that I remember, even from when I was a kid, was, you know, that old bumper sticker that said, when guns were outlawed, only outlaws will have guns. And it took me a long time to understand that didn't just mean that the criminals, the bad guys, would have guns. It meant that law-abiding citizens were going to make a decision to essentially become outlaws because they wanted to defend themselves. And that's the conundrum that government is placing us in many instances. Now, not here in Alaska, not in Arizona, but in some categories and in some jurisdictions, that's the conundrum they're placing. They're basically disarming and making average law-abiding citizens afraid, and they're endangering them. And so now they have to make a decision. Do we follow this law or don't we?
And they'll tell you the answer is going to be don't. Historically, when you push people in a position, even with things that don't involve, say, deep ideological commitment or life and death decisions, alcohol. People did not obey prohibition, and prohibition ended because there was a strong desire to continue to drink alcohol. If you're talking about firearms, especially in the American context, but increasingly globally, and actually I have a piece coming out on this we could discuss after the break if you like. But since firearms involve self-defense, they involve life and death decisions, and there's an ideological element to them that is linked to the idea of liberty and restraints on the state. If you tell people you can't have guns, you're begging them to break the law and to look at the law as a threat and to violate it. And you're seeing that happen dramatically in Europe. You're seeing it happen in Oceania, in places like New Zealand and Australia. You're seeing it happen in other places, in Myanmar and countries around the world, where disarming the people is seen in a lot of cultures, and I think increasingly so, as a warning sign that the people are under threat from their own government. You're just begging for defiance of the law.
Well, my old friend Aaron Zellman, who used to be the head of the Jews for the Preservation of Firearms Ownership, he and I had several conversations over the years. He wrote the book that it was Gun Control, the Gateway to Tyranny. And he chronicled, not only was it gateway to tyranny, it was also the gateway to I'm sorry, I've lost the word, to basically to massacres, to genocide. Gateway to genocide, right? But he talked about gateway to tyranny, and he chronicled in his book how each one of the, whether it was Pol Pot in Cambodia or the Turks against the Christians in the Ottoman Empire, or how that when they disarmed the populace, it was the precursor to them being rounded up and exterminated. Obviously the biggest example of that is the Jews in Germany, Kristallnacht, etc. But that is the problem, is that as soon as the state comes in and disarms people, very usually thereafter, Russia, they disarmed the peasantry under Stalin, and then they killed millions through the control of the state. That is the problem. It's not like you're saying that this is some kind of amorphous threat. It's a real threat. History tells us that when you get disarmed, get ready, something bad is coming.
Alexander Solzhenitsyn, the Soviet dissident back in the Soviet days. I remember, I'm going to have to paraphrase, but there was a passage where he wrote that if the prisoners in the gulags knew what was waiting for them, they would have fought when the secret policemen came for them. They would have fell on them with kitchen knives and table legs, and they would have fought to kill them and to save themselves. They would have fought to the last breath, because it would have been better than being sent to the gulag. So that's as indicative to me as anything is of the need for the means of equalizing with the state, of having some level of force you can use against the state, and the warning that's inherent in being disarmed by the government.
I often say that one of the reasons that America is as free as it still is. I mean, we got warts, we got blisters, we got, boils, we've got some ugliness going on. But the reason that America has remained as safe as it is because of the implicit threat of Second Amendment, of armed citizens. It's not an overt threat. It's an implied threat. You could push us, but you can only push us so far before we push back. And that's also a very American ideal, is that idea of civil disobedience and pushing back. I mean, you say two words, Athens, Georgia, right? If you understand your history and you go back to Athens, Georgia, you understand what an armed citizenry can do. And that, I think, terrifies the political powers that be.
Yeah, it was Athens, Tennessee. REM, the band, came from Athens, Georgia.
I'm sorry, that's right. I apologize. Athens, Tennessee. You're right. I keep getting them mixed up. I do that all the time. But yeah, Athens, Tennessee, the Battle of Athens. If you want a little piece of history, go back there and look up the Battle of Athens. But yeah, it terrifies politicians to think that people would have the ability to push back against them. All right, let's get back to it. We're 5 seconds out here. JD Tuccille, our guest. Reason Magazine is where you find him, reason.com. You could sign up for his newsletter. Let's get to it.
What the hell is an assault weapon?
If we could just figure out how to get all of the murder guns and the attack guns and not keep selling those to people and just sell protection guns, I think that would be great and solve a lot of problems.
Does this mean that if we hurt your feelings, you'd consider the Michael Dukes Show assault radio? Okay, we can live with that. Here's Michael Dukes.
Yeah, I forgot what day it was. It's, I definitely have no murder guns or attack guns. They're all protection guns. JD Tuccille has nothing but protection guns. I'm sure that's it. You check the tags, right, JD, before you buy them. You make sure.
Absolutely. It's engraved on the slide. So
protection, protector. This is nothing about murder or attack. We were getting into a very interesting conversation during the break here about, the fact that it was the old adage that it got us started in the conversation of, the old bumper sticker that you'll remember from back in the day of when guns were outlawed, only outlaws will have guns. That has a simple meaning of only criminals will have guns because the guns will be outlawed. But the deeper meaning is, and took me years to understand that, is that it will force law-abiding citizens to make a choice to try and follow the law or to become an outlaw to be able to protect themselves. And JD, you said you're working on an article right now that talks about the effects of a prohibition type movement. Give us your thoughts on this, and pull this together for us, those separate pieces. I want to hear about it.
Absolutely. This is a piece I wrote for the National Post, the Canadian newspaper, and it'll be up in the next day or two. I approved the edits on it yesterday. What it's about is the growing DIY firearms movement, which is spread around the world. It started in the U.S. with Cody Wilson and the Liberator, which was a single-shot 3D printed pistol. Then in recent years, the big 3D printed, or not just 3D printed, but it's assembled from 3D printed parts, but also regular hardware store parts, has been the FGC9, which stands for F gun control 9mm. And it's meant to be simple and manufacturable any place. It's kind of taken the world by storm, but it was designed by a former German soldier who embraced libertarian politics and saw these DIY firearms as a way of crippling gun control, bypassing restrictions on self-defense and putting people on an equal footing with the state, so that there was no longer a monopoly of force in the hands of the state, that people could defend themselves from governments if need be. And they've made their way. The FGC-9s have become very popular with the Myanmar rebels. They use them for training and also for hit-and-run raids. If they don't have enough commercial weapons to go around, they'll make these semi-automatic FGC-9s attack Myanmar's official army and then take their guns. And so then you spread the 3D printed guns down to new trainees. Well, this year a new gun came out called the Uratao, which was meant as a successor. It's apparently even easier to make and requires less skill and fewer specific parts than the FGC-9. Its designer is Brazilian. He's also a libertarian and also embraces the idea of guns as liberatory. And packaged in with the Uratao design files, which you can get online for free download, is a document called the New Second Amendment, which he and another gun designer wrote, which is basically an international statement of the need for the right to bear arms and of making DIY firearms beyond the reach of the state, so that the state cannot deny permission for their manufacture. I mean, it's really just kind of amazing the political cast that the DIY firearms movement has taken on, and how the lead designers on it now are not Americans, for very good reasons, because Americans are not subject to the same restrictions that people in Brazil or Germany are. So you're seeing these designers coming out of countries that suffer restrictive laws, and they're embracing the liberatory aspects of owning firearms and turning it into a combination political and technical movement. And that's the piece I wrote, and it should be out in the next day or two.
And where's it going to be at? Where is it going to be found again?
The National Post. So nationalpost.com, the Canadian newspaper.
Okay, nationalpost.com. Yeah, I mean, we've seen so much movement in America. We talked to Rob Pincus, who's one of the founders of the Makers Match, which is the 3D printed gun match that happens now. I think this was their third or fourth year that they've done it, where people bring, whatever their 3D printed designs are, and they go out to the range and they do shooting. And there's a lot of hand wringing in the country about 3D printing or desktop CNC or whatever it is. But the bottom line is, this is a movement that's not strictly American. And as you point out, a lot of this is happening outside the country because they don't have the freedoms that we have. We complain about what's going on with our gun rights, but at least we have some gun rights to defend. There's many countries where they have no gun rights at all. And yet, as we talked about earlier, sometimes you got to do your big boy thing. There are people in other countries who are deciding the state's wrong, and they're going to carry a gun just because they need to be able to defend themselves from the criminal element, because the criminal element is not obeying the law.
And that's exactly right. I mean, about 10 years ago, I wrote a piece about how Europeans have far more illegal firearms than they have legal firearms. And there's a small arms survey, is a group based out of Geneva, Switzerland, that documents this and the spread of small arms around the world. And they don't like this, but they're very honest about saying, yeah, I mean, a lot of Europeans do not obey these gun laws. And they don't obey the gun laws because they don't trust their governments. And so you've got a thriving black market there. You've got a lot of guns that were stashed from before the restrictive laws came in. And then you've got guns that were acquired from the Balkan Wars and then are coming in now from the war in Ukraine. And of course, this particular report that I had referenced was written before 3D guns and CNC guns became such a big deal. But that's adding to these now, because these techniques have been developed for simply making very sophisticated guns. This new Uratao is actually select fire. It's not just semi-automatic. It can be full automatic. Well, of course, if you're making an illegal gun, why wouldn't you go for broke, right?
Right. If you're going to do it, why not go full bore at that point? Because it doesn't matter. I mean, I remember the bikie gangs, which are biker gangs in Australia, but the bikie gangs where they went into Melbourne and Sydney and they busted like a half a dozen machine shops where the bikie gangs had taken them over, and they were manufacturing full auto guns all over the place. Why? If in for a penny, in for a pound. If they're going to do it, they're going to do it. Nothing is going to stop it. Charlie Hebdo in France, right? Some of the most restrictive gun laws in the country, they had full auto AKs. They weren't messing around. It's not like they're going to follow the law. Why do we continue to penalize law-abiding citizens and put them at risk because of the actions of a very few? That's part of the main problem here. 2 minutes, JD. I'll let you finish up.
Absolutely. Well, if we're talking about, I mean, the bikie gangs are doing it, the cartels are doing it, the extremists are doing it. Why shouldn't regular people embrace it as liberatory? The ownership of firearms is a means of protecting yourself against criminals, but also defending yourself against the state. I mean, if you're old enough and you've lived in Germany or parts of Europe, you've gone through multiple governments and multiple ideologies without ever having to move out of your house. And that's a fact. So even if you like the government you're living under right now, who knows what's going to be governing you in 20 years? So having the means of self-defense that's not registered with the state, that puts you on some kind of a footing, not necessarily to overthrow the state, but to defend yourself, to get through to that roadblock, or to send off that secret policeman so you can live another day. I mean, that's what you're looking for, and I think that's just the reality of it. So.
Well, yeah, like you said, it was, remember the Warsaw ghettos, they always had the little one-shot pistols. The Allies were dropping those the original Liberator pistols that were one shot, so that you could shoot the German and take his Schmeiser. You know what I mean? I mean, that was what it was about. If that's what it takes, then that's what it takes. And the Europeans being afraid of their government has got good historical record for why they should be. It's why we all should be worried about it. JD Tuccille, Reason Magazine. You can find him at reason.com. You could sign up for his newsletter. It's called The Rattler, and he'll drop an article or two every week into your email inbox. If you sign up for it, it's the best way to get the info and to do it. JD, as always, it's a blessing to talk to you. I can't wait to read this article that you've got coming out about DIY guns. And maybe we'll have you back here in a few weeks to talk more about it. Appreciate you coming on board and joining us this morning.
Thanks a lot, Michael. Always a pleasure.
All right, hold the line for just a sec. Folks, we're out of time. Hour 2 is dead ahead. More coming up on this Firearms Friday. We'll see you in just a sec. All right, and it's called the National Post. Is that what you said, JD?
Yeah, it's one of the big 3 newspapers in Canada.
Okay. I just want to make sure, because I definitely want to catch this article when it comes out, because that whole concept has fascinated me. This idea of, it is the ultimate level of self-determination when you make your own firearm, right? I mean, you're definitely, and you've got that liberatory, kind of aspect of it, and having the fact that this is going to be printed in Canada is definitely ironic. But I'd love to see what the reaction is on that. This is a movement that I don't think is going to stop. No. The DIY, the 3D, the CNC, the ghost gunner, right? I mean, all this kind of stuff. The technology is just going to get better and better. Government cannot react to the speed of technology.
No, and what's really cool is the innovation. I mean, obviously they've embraced the liberation politics of this, but they've developed techniques for rifling barrels using electrochemical means you can do in your own garage, a home garage, without special equipment. I don't know the specifics of it, but it's become really popular. And they're making these it's no special gun parts. It's stuff you can get in a hardware store and add to 3D printed components. It's amazing. This is not going away. This is here to stay. And it's permanent.
Yeah, no, and I love to see it. I love to see people taking liberty into their own hands, and it's about time that the politicians start to understand that you can't penalize. I mean, we did the math on this here a while ago, but essentially, it's only 0.006% of guns are used in crimes. That means that 99.004% of guns are perfectly lawfully, legally used. Stop punishing the people, the law-abiding citizens, for the action. Punish the wrongdoers. Don't punish everybody else.
That's exactly right. If you're going to limit everybody's liberty because somebody somewhere might abuse it, you can justify any kind of authoritarian restriction, which of course is what the Europeans are doing now with free speech. Just look at it. Somebody somewhere said something mean about a minority group, or something mean about a member of the legislature. So now we're going to restrict everyone's speech, and if you post something that is a little pointed, you're going to have the police knocking on your door. Gee, how that's convenient, because the enforcement all ends up being in favor of whoever's currently in power. And that's just the way it always works out. So if you're going to justify restrictions on liberty because somebody's going to abuse their liberty, then you end up with no liberty.
It's not even a slippery slope. It's a downhill slide. I mean, it's a greased ski hill at that point. We've all seen the video of the Metropolitan Police in an English home where the lady cop is there saying, "We're here to talk to you about some of your posts on Facebook," and you're like, "What? That's not a joke. That's real. They literally are arresting people for saying things that hurt somebody's feelings somewhere, sometime." I mean, it's getting a little crazy out there. It reminds me of the old time about the time that says people say, well, about the time you talk about burying your guns is probably the time you should be digging them up. You know what I mean? So definitely paying attention to it. Okay. Thank you so much for coming out, JD. As always, super pleasurable. One of my favorite times. I appreciate you. So thank you. And tell your wife thank you for letting you to take the time out of the day and all that. I appreciate it.
Thanks a lot. I always appreciate coming on. So you take care.
All right. It's good to talk with you, my friend. We'll see you soon. JD Tuccille, Reason Magazine. Yeah, I can't wait. I can't wait to read this article, especially in one of the biggest papers in Canada. I mean, there's some irony there. I'm just saying there is some irony there that he's writing about the DIY movement in a Canadian paper. I mean, I just want to know, is it a how-to manual? I mean, oof, I just want to know. Of course, I just went over to the Canadian newspaper, the National Post, at the nationalpost.com, and at the top of the headline is "Killer who raped and decapitated 12-year-old Ontario girl has been paroled." Okay. I mean, okay. Wow. All right. Let's see. The manufacture and modification of firearms in the home is a tradition older than the Republic itself. That's a quote from John Browning. John Moses Brown. There's a new not documentary. There's a new biography out, and I didn't catch the name of it. But I heard it. I heard somebody talking about it last week, and I meant to go look it up. But that's a good reminder. I want to go check that out. But I mean, yeah, you want to talk about the godfather of firearm design. It was an interview that I was listening to where a guy was talking about the book, and John Moses Browning, who, again, if you don't know you should go back and do some research. But Browning was such a genius that he literally would design a firearm in his head. He very rarely had, design schematics or anything else. He literally would design it all in his head. He'd start to build it, and then he'd finesse it and fit it and do all that kind of stuff. And do it all from just right here in the old brain pan. It's amazing. But John Browning, yeah, the godfather of gun design, a hero to the show and to many other folks out there. Will the paper print it, says TR. Well, he said that he just approved the edits to it, so apparently they're getting ready to do it. I can't wait. I'm going to leave it up today to see if it pops up on the screen today. And maybe we'll cover it next week on Firearms Friday. It's good stuff. All right. Well, that's it. I guess we're up against it. We're up against it. We're ready to go. Let's get to it. The Michael Dukes Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free thinking radio. Here we go.
Whoa, buddy. Put that thing back in its holster. We haven't gone anywhere.
I don't understand.
Check out the MichaelDukesShow.com for information on how to get access to the podcast.
Welcome to the party, pal.
The Michael Dukes Show.
I have 2 guns, one for each of you.
Firearms Friday.
As Thomas Jefferson stated, It is the right and duty of the people to be at all times armed.
Say hello to my little friend.
I say that the Second Amendment is, in order of importance, the First Amendment. The right to keep and bear arms is the one right that allows rights to exist at all.
The Michael Dukes Show. The right to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Not be infringed. Firearms.
From my cold, dead hands.
Friday.
Take my rifle, this is my gun. This is for fighting, this is for fun.
Firearms Friday.
Firearms Friday, your chance to sound off on issues of a 2A nature right here on the Michael Dukes Show, broadcasting live across the state of Alaska on this, your favorite radio station and or FM translator, and live around the world on the internet at michaeldukeshow.com. Also the podcast right there on Spotify or wherever you find podcasts out there. Good morning, my friends, and welcome to the show for this, the hour 2 of the broadcast. Don't forget, we're going to be joined here in just a little bit by Willie Waffle from wafflemovies.com, who's going to come in and join us and give us the weekly entertainment review for the streams and the movies and the entertainment news and everything else. Why? Because I said so. That's why. It's gonna be fun. It's gonna be fun. We're gonna enjoy it, and you guys are gonna. We're all gonna have a good time coming up here at the end of the hour. Meanwhile, we're gonna continue with some of our stories and some of the headlines from around the country. We'll also take some phone calls. I'm going to go ahead, and I forgot to do it during the break, but I'm going to turn. Thanks so much for calling. I'm going to go ahead and turn the phone lines on, and we're going to take some calls from you, the listeners. If you want to sound off, we're going to allow you to jump on board and be part of it with us. Help drive the boat, as it were, here on the program. So phone lines are open at 319-527-3864. Maybe you just stumbled across this program and you're like, you've never heard it before. And you're like, well, I totally disagree on it. There's the weapons of war and blah, 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 kids in the streets and, whatever else. Maybe you disagree. Well, tell us why. Call up. Let's have a conversation. I can say that in my 15, 18 years of doing Firearms Friday, I think I probably had 3 or 4 conversations in that whole time with people who disagreed with me, and they were always very interesting, always good to see, always good to hear. And in the entire time we've been doing this, because this show is not for you pro-gun people. I mean, I'm glad you listen. It's obviously entertaining and educational, but the show is not for you. The show is not for the pro-gun. It's not for the anti-gun. It's for those people in the middle who are, kind of gun curious, right? I guess is the phrase we use. But I will say that of all the years, I did get a call here. Boy, this would have been 7-8 years ago. It was when I was in Anchorage on the air there. And we got a call from a listener who said that I had changed her mind, that she was visiting her brother or whatever it was there in Anchorage. She was from the East Coast, and she had heard the show because her brother listened, and she got so mad about everything that we were talking about, but she was spending 5 weeks with her brother. And she had called us on the last week she was there. And she said she'd heard the show on the first week, and then, she got mad, and she and her brother talked, and then he took her to the range and blah, blah. By the end of the 5th week, she's like, I'm going back to, I can't remember where it was, New Jersey or New York. She said, I'm going to buy a gun. I mean, it was the only time that I've ever had confirmation of a conversion to the way of the gun from anybody. It was really satisfying. I mean, again, it's only happened one time in 18 years, but maybe you're listening out there today and you've decided you want to join the gun culture, and you can tell me that too as well. But anyway, the phone number is 319-527-3864. And we'd love to have you call in and talk with us today about things related to firearms, etc. You know, JD Tuccille, who was just our guest from Reason Magazine, you know, he makes some amazingly excellent points about the criminality. I guess I don't know if the word is criminality that I want to use, but the fact that we as Americans are starting to understand it, and not just as Americans. I mean, people around the world. He was just talking about the two people who have developed the two most popular do-it-yourself firearms, the FCG-9 and the new one, which Uruguay, whatever it was. He, you know, he makes the point that, you know, freedom is contagious, and that people want to be free. They don't want to be controlled by government, and that government by its very nature means that control is necessary. And that's where we are here in America today. We've got a group of politicians and elites and bureaucrats who believe in their heart of hearts that they know better than us how we should live our lives. They have a plan. Now, maybe it's not a written down plan. Maybe it's more amorphous. Maybe it's just a feeling of moral superiority that they know better than you how these things should work. But they have a plan. And you rugged individualists, you are standing in the way of their utopian ideal. And because you are a rugged individualist, and generally speaking, most of those of us who are that way have taken to arming ourselves and protecting ourselves and taking responsibility for our own safety, we have the ability to push back if they go, you know, if it's a bridge too far, so to speak, to step too far. And that's what really worries them. And that's why they continue to fight. That's why these, you know, again, we saw this thing in Manhattan where the immediate thing was to call for more gun control, because all the other gun control, I mean, it didn't stop him. I mean, this guy transited, you know, how many states, how many laws did he break to get the gun to New York, let alone once he was there in Manhattan? How many laws did he bust to get there? Again, showing and highlighting that none of these things are, you know, it was it was interesting. Alan Gottlieb makes a mention of this. There was a pointed remark by former FBI agent Nicole Parker, who appeared on Fox News. And she said this is her quote on Fox News. And I'm so glad that somebody is finally saying what we've been saying on the program for years. Evil people don't obey gun laws. That's just, you know, and he says, if it's this easy for a former FBI agent to explain, why don't Empire State politicians understand such a simple and indisputable fact? Criminals don't obey the laws. You cannot regulate, and I don't remember who this quote came from originally, but I've been using it for years. You cannot legislate insanity or evil. That was the quote. You cannot legislate or regulate insanity or evil. And so by punishing the rest of the law-abiding citizenry for the actions of a very, very, very minute few, you're doing a complete and total disservice, and you're stripping the liberty from the rest of the law-abiding citizens. And it, you know, again, if we use the substitution game and stop talking about the Second Amendment and started talking about, well, I don't know, the First Amendment, and told people we'll take away your phones and your Facebook posts, and we'll do this and we'll do that if you don't, you know, I mean, people would lose their minds. But I would argue again that the Second Amendment is in order of importance the First Amendment, the one right that allows all the other rights to exist. It's our way to be able to fight back for all those other rights. Anyway, JD's given me a lot to think about. He's given me a lot to think about today, and I'm feeling a little introspective on some of these things. So we'll get to that here in a second. But I see that Fred is on the line. So Fred from Rhode Island, who calls in every week to share with us his thoughts on stuff. So let's get over there and see what he has to say. Good morning, Fred. How are you?
Hey, good morning, Mike. Yeah, great show today. Really, really great show.
Thank you.
Point I want to make is, with the recent situation in New York with this nut job who, pulled off his dastardly deed over there. And I find it really amazing, especially after all these years, that the one firearm that they particularly use is the AR-15. Now, I think it has nothing to do. I think there's a lot more to be looked at as to why they particularly pick one firearm to do this. And it also happens to be the one firearm that all these progressive woke nut jobs in legislatures who think that they're going to save the whole world by some foolish plan to take away the rights of law-abiding citizens and get rid of these things is going to actually accomplish anything that they claim they're going to set out to try to do. I find there's a connection there. There's something going on there just below the surface that is going on. I don't know what, and I take this back to what happened over in Uvalde over there in Texas. How does this 18-year-old nut job working at Wendy's come up with all these expensive firearms, really expensive firearms and equipment on Wendy's hamburger slinging salary? I think there's something going on here that it should be looked at. But the other point I want to make is that this whole thing with the fight, making firearms. If you make firearms illegal, it becomes an underground black market industry. This is exactly what the cartels and the criminal element want. You have one more avenue to make revenue out of something that they've outlawed.
Right.
I mean, it started out with prohibition and alcohol. Look how well that turned out. It turned out with organized crime as an end result, real organized crime as a result of prohibition. That worked out really well. And we're kind of dealing with sort of the same idea now. They get these people who want to outlaw that. They're going to create a multi-billion-dollar industry in illegal firearms. You can't stop drugs coming across the border. You can't stop all these other things coming across the border. You're certainly not going to stop firearms from coming across the border.
Right.
And the only people who are really going to be into it are going to be the criminal element.
Right.
So, this is not, their great plan to save the world is going to do nothing but accelerate its demise.
Well, and what's interesting is, you make the point, you can't stop guns, you can't stop drugs. I mean, you can't stop drugs from prison, right? I mean, supposedly the most secure places in the world. Bad people are going to do bad things, Fred. And until the politicians understand that, I'm not saying we don't need to have laws, but to penalize law-abiding citizens for the actions of criminals is the height of irresponsibility, because basically all you're doing is creating a whole new cadre of victims at that point.
Well, what you have to have is you have to have laws that are effective laws that deal with the problem. The problem is not law-abiding citizens. The problem has always been the crazies and the criminals. Until you address them directly and deal with them directly, and only them, because they are the problem, the only thing you're doing is you're really mucking up the whole plan. The plan is, the creation of what makes this country great is gonna, you take it away, the elements that make this country great, it's gonna turn into a third world cesspool, which is exactly what a lot of these progressive nut jobs want to do to this country anyway. I don't mean the criminals, I mean the elected fools they put into office. They come up with these idiotic laws that just goose step along with whatever the international narrative is. Your globalist, your international, your small arms treaty from the UN.
Right.
Those people like Klaus Schwab, and you get Soros, and you get Bloomberg, and the rest of these globalists who just want to rule over everything. This is you're playing right into their corner by seeing this.
Yeah.
By going along with it.
No, and again, this has been part of I think of a larger agenda. Now, whether it's organized as you always talk about Soros and other globalists, and I don't know if I'm convinced as to whether it's an organized global thing or not, but it is, again, the nature of politicians of every stripe from every corner of the world to want the same thing, which is basically to rule, to let again, they know better than us how we should live our lives. And if we're standing in the way of that, they want to, they want to make those changes. They want us to not be able to do those things. They want to be able to tell us how to live. And firearms and the right to keep and bear arms is a threat wherever they are, whether it's organized or not, is a threat to their jurisdiction and their ideology.
Yeah, absolutely right. Well, this is, like I say, this is something that it needs to be looked at. It needs to be put under a microscope and taken a closer look at.
Yeah.
As to why why these people pick this particular firearm.
Yeah.
Really, there's something going on. It just smells rotten.
All right. Well, thank you, Fred, for calling in. It's always great to hear from you. Thanks for calling in today.
All right, you take care, Mike. Have a good week.
You bet. All right, Fred from Rhode Island hanging out with us there for a little bit as we get things ready to go. Okay, we got more coming up. Don't go anywhere. The Michael Dukes Show, common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. We'll continue with more in just a moment. Don't go anywhere. Back after this.
If you missed the show, you can listen to it on your time with Dukes On Demand. Oh, and it's free. Like America used to be. Streaming live every weekday morning on Facebook Live and MichaelDukesShow.com.
Okay. Hiya. How are you? How are you doing? Are you ready to go? I'm almost ready to go here. I'm trying to fix something over here. Don't tell anybody. Trying to fix the yeah, I'm going to do that. All right. Okay. Look at that. Fixed it. Okay. Greg just said, I wonder how many springs John Browning lost in his lifetime. Isn't that the worst? Where'd that little thing go? Where'd it go? Where did it go? Anyway. I want world peace and free Tibet, says Frank. Okay. I mean, me too. I want world peas too. Although usually I just eat them on a plate, but you can put them in a blender and whirl them up. World peas is great. Brian said the two are not mutually exclusive. I don't know exactly what I was saying at the point or what Fred was saying at that point, but I'm sure it was something. I'm sure it was something appropriately profound. Yeah, he most likely manufactured it. John Browning is an amazing guy. We should do a whole show. We should do a whole show on John Browning sometime. Maybe I'll see if I can find this book, and then maybe we'll do a full background on him, because he was amazing. He was absolutely amazing. All right. Am I caught up? I'm all caught up. Criminals and elected officials. The two are not mutually exclusive. Yes, Brian, you are 100% correct. Criminals and elected officials are not mutually exclusive. In fact, you maybe just repeated yourself in, you may have just repeated yourself in that regard. Oh, Friday, my friends, there's some crazy stuff going on out there. I've got so many stories, and I'm not going to get to hardly any of them, but I did want to talk about this. I wanted to talk about this Michigan thing, the Walmart, the stabbing thing, because it just astounds. If you look at the coverage of this event, it didn't fit the narrative. And so it seemed like only the local outlets mentioned the fact that this guy was stopped by a good guy with a gun. And all the national outlets just hit the attack itself, and they didn't mention any. And then the story, have you heard anything about the story? I mean, we heard about it, and then it just dropped off the radar because it didn't fit the narrative. The same, like this New York shooting. This New York shooting's been all over the news, right? For days. And it's just so typical of that. It's crazy. I did want to, do I have time? I might just tell you this. Glock has been in a fight with Maryland, Chicago, Illinois, Baltimore. They have, they've been trying to force Glock through legal action. They've been trying to force Glock to modify their design of their guns so that they wouldn't be able to accept full auto machine, switches, the automatic switch. And they are the primary target at the moment on that. They basically say that Glock is essentially aiding and abetting violent criminals by not changing the design of their pistols to not be able to accept a switch. Glock has deployed a lot of different arguments on it, basically saying, the PLCAA, precludes that from us. Maryland law, which doesn't recognize the cause of action for public nuisance based on the sale and distribution of legal consumer products and everything else. But their final mic drop moment came in this last filing, which I guess we're going to have to get to in the next break, because I really want to do this story on Michigan. All right, here we go. Sorry, the Michael Duke Show, Common Sense Radio. Let's do it.
What the hell's an assault weapon? What isn't? If I assault you with a penguin, doesn't that make it an assault weapon? Does this mean that if we hurt your feelings, you'd consider the Michael Duke Show assault radio? Okay, we can live with that. Here's Michael Dukes.
All right, welcome back to the program, the Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. Hello, my friend. How are you guys doing? You guys all ready to go and getting into it? We got Willie Waffle coming up here in a few minutes. I'm going to try and get through at least one story, maybe two. Harold in the chat room just said, just looked at the security video of the downtown shooting. That looked like a 5.56 long gun out of a trunk at point blank range. In fact, it was. If you haven't been following what happened with the shooting at the Gaslight in Anchorage, it was crazy. The full video was up. I think YouTube has taken it down now, but I got a chance to watch it several times before it happened. This was somebody who had ill intent. This guy that got killed outside the Gaslight had ill intent. He came there with another person. There were some fights out front. He never made it inside, but security was aware that there was some kind of problem, and they came out and they saw the situation brewing, and one of the security guards went out onto the curb. His car happened to be parked right in front of the Gaslight. And as things were starting to get he went to his trunk of his car and he popped the trunk. And just as the action started to happen, the fight went from the gunman pulled a gun, shot at two of the security officers who were trying to restrain him, and then was going to open fire, was backing up and holding out the gun to open fire on the rest of the crowd. And the security guard who was at his trunk pulled out an AR-15 and capped him at about 8 feet. And it's impressive to watch. These guys, they kept their head. And luckily the gunman was the only one that actually died. The other ones were injured, but it just goes to show you that even here in Alaska, that kind of stuff can happen. That kind of badness can happen. But it's very instructional to watch the video. If the video is still up, you should be able to go. Because this guy was spraying bullets he shot both the security guards that were around him. One got hit in the hand and the other one was hit 5 or 6 times, but has made it through, is pulled through. But he was spraying into the crowd. There's a crowd of people around there. And so this security guard did the right thing. And it was pretty impressive. Let's just put it that way. It was pretty impressive, the level of professionalism, I guess I would say, out of this security guard. But if you get a chance, you could go back and watch this and break it down as the situation commences. There's about 11-minute video that kind of walks through all the security cam footage. But it's kind of crazy. Anyway, Harold distracted me with that because it is a fact. I really don't have any lessons to learn out of that whole situation, other than the fact that I now understand that I don't want to stand around outside a nightclub because the crowd, I mean, it's giving me hives, the crowd. And then their two ladies got into a fight over something and everything else. And then these two guys rolled up on them, the guys with the guns, one of the guys with the gun. But I mean, I guess lessons learned is I don't know why you would ever not be armed, even in downtown Anchorage. Now, this guy happened to shoot him with an AR because that's what he had access to. It was right there. The security guards weren't armed. They were unarmed security versus this guy with a gun. But he equalized it real quick. So, yeah. Anyway, yeah. Well, homie did not look beyond his target. That's true. That's true. He shot the guy, and there were people behind the shooter when he pulled the trigger. But I guess luckily the shooter was the only one who went down. So maybe his aim was true. Anyway, let's go over to the story that I really wanted to get to, which was this story about the Walmart stabbings that took place last weekend. Now, the reason, and I know it's Firearms Friday, why are we talking about this? The reason that I want to talk about it is because I want to again highlight the hypocrisy of the mainstream news media. I'm sure you probably heard about the Walmart stabbing. It was on the national news, top of the hour news, Fox News, Town Hall, CNN. Everybody was covering it for a short period of time. But what you didn't hear in the vast majority of the news story, including from my own, I carry Town Hall News here on my radio stations, and that's from Salem Radio. That's a fairly conservative, news outlet. But even they didn't mention it. The fact, and I'm sure unless you've been paying close attention, you probably didn't hear it as well. The Walmart stabbing spree, which was done, the man allegedly stabbed 11 people in a Walmart in Traverse City. But it was only because of the actions of a citizen named Derek Perry that spree came to a close. Because Derek Perry was armed, and they were able to stop and subdue the attacker and hold him for law enforcement. Now, you didn't hear the fact that a good guy with a gun, now he didn't kill him. He was able to use the gun to subdue him and then hold him for law enforcement. Which you think from an anti-gunner's perspective would be, an ideal outcome because nobody got shot, right? But you didn't hear about that. You didn't hear anything about that on the vast majority of the mainstream news media outlets. The local ones talked about it. Local Twitter was blowing up. The sheriff's department made a mention of it on their X feed. But this is part of the problem. It didn't fit their and now, I mean, then you didn't hear. Then it faded from the news cycle in less than 24 hours. Whereas any other time a shooting has occurred, if it fits their narrative, there'll be days of coverage of that event. Let me just out of curiosity, let me go over to CNN right this second. Okay, it's not on the headlines. Okay, so that's good. That's good. I thought for sure that the Manhattan shooting would still be, top of the charts here, right on the front page of CNN, because that's generally what happens, right? Is that it's in the news for days, and they beat that drum for days about how this is a reason why we should instigate more gun control because of the actions of somebody who has already broken so many laws that you can't even count them. To take a gun from one side of the country and transit all those states, including New Jersey and New York, to bring it into where it's obviously illegal. And by the way, it's illegal to kill people. I don't know if you knew that, but that's also illegal. And this idea that somehow we need to punish every law-abiding citizen for the actions of just a few people is one of those things that just frustrates me. And the fact that the news media continues to ignore the fact that there is time and time again a chance where a good person who is armed can save the day, even if they're not law enforcement. I mean, that's the thing. They act like all the gun, but see, this plays back into their narrative that basically says that guns are the reason, not the people, but that the guns are the reason. Because if they blame the person, then you'd have a choice. But because of the guns, that's why they can say a good guy with a gun is still evil because he's got a gun, right? Anyway, it's just such a pet peeve with me. I just wanted to point that out for us today. All right, we got to go. The Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free thinking radio. Okay. I made kind of a hash of that, but that's okay. Let's see. Let me go back here. Chris says, I watched that video. The AR-15 took him out fast. Oh yeah, it dropped him like a hot habit. I mean, it just dropped him right now. And thank goodness, because again, he was still pointing at a crowd of people with that pistol. And thank goodness he was switched off immediately because, yeah, it was it's just scary. I mean, there was a ton of people there. Yeah. The morning after, the Bartlett High School Alumni Association noted that he was killed in a shooting and portrayed him as a bright and promising student athlete. It has since been taken down. Really? The Alumni Association said, oh, he was a bright and, oh, poor Johnny, he was a perfect angel until he, geez. Yeah. Yeah, unarmed security guard, said Teresa. There's a great example of an oxymoron. I mean, that's where most places are. Security in most places is not, I mean, that's the problem. And they know it's a gun-free zone, right? So that makes it an even juicier prime target. Yeah. Sorry, Brian. I know. See, like I said, I made a bit of a hash of it. I was a little stammery there, but it was supposed to be like a bad habit. I was going to say, drop it like a hot potato or drop it like a bad habit, and I made it a hot habit. So, hey, it is what it is. I'm making new stuff up as we go. What do you want? What do you want from me, man? Not enough of the go juice this morning. Not enough of the brown cow. No, that's chocolate milk. Not enough Joe in the world this morning to get me awake. Absolutely. All right. I got the phone set up. Everything's ready. Got the lighting. We to turn off the phone lines. Should we turn off the phone lines? Let's turn the phone lines off.
Goodbye.
All right. Brian, you expect perfection? You are in the wrong world if you expect perfection here, my friend. Have you not watched this show? I mean, for more than 5 minutes, there's definitely no perfection here. Deeply, deeply flawed. That's what I am. The new slang, says Jesse Walton. Yes, the new slang. Hot habit. Terry says hot habit works for her. Miguel said, some time ago, I went to the Fifth Avenue Mall in Anchorage and, of course, was carrying it. And after about 4 hours of shopping, then a security guard noticed and asked me to leave because it's not allowed. I asked, where does it state this? And the security guard said, as you walk into the glass entrance, it's posted on the wall side. And I told them, well, that's not the place anyone would see it. So we left. Well, again, that's a good reminder, Miguel. That's a good reminder that concealed means concealed. That's all I'll say about that. That's a reminder that concealed means concealed. Or were you open carrying? Because if you're open carrying, I would remind you that concealed means concealed. Miguel said after that, in a few months later, they had an incident in the Fifth Avenue Mall, which had someone had their firearm would have saved the day. Yeah. Yeah. Where is area code 319 out? I think it's Indiana or something. It's the service that I use. It's just I can't get somewhere in the service. Yeah. So one of the reasons. Anthony says, well, honestly, the right doesn't report good guy with gun typically unless the criminal gets shot. The left only reports criminal shoots. The reality in between is that having a firearm alone can de-escalate things without ever having to fire a shot. Well, that's what they're saying. The DGU, the defensive gun uses, the vast majority of them have no shots fired. The vast majority of them had no shots fired. For sure. And you're right. No, the right doesn't want to report on it because it's not a win because somebody didn't get shot, and the left only wants to report when the criminals shoot. Yeah, so you're 100% right, Anthony. Miguel said, yes, at the time I was open carrying at that time, which I conceal now, of course. Yes, do not open carry. Do not open carry. Is it Iowa? Oh, it's Iowa, not Indiana. It was one of the I states. Frank knows what's going on. But yeah, the phone service the conference service that I use for the phone calls is out in the lower 48 somewhere. So we'll get it going. All right. Wait, let me put this on. Put Willie on hold. Just called in. Okay, we're on hold. Okay, we're ready to go. You guys ready? Let's do this thing, shall we? Please like and share. If you haven't already, like, share, subscribe, ring the bell, do all that kind of stuff. Let's get it going on. The Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. Let's do it. Oh, man. The weekend. You know what it's like. So good. It's relaxing. It's also busy. I mean, just depending on what you're doing. But the man who I know will not be busy this weekend, because he is a man of leisure, is Willie Waffle, our entertainment and movie critique extraordinaire. Hello, my friend. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm booked all weekend, man. It's SummerSlam this weekend. I have things to do Saturday and Sunday.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
That's a busy weekend for me.
I got stuff to do. I got to watch wrestling. That's the thing. It's all good. Which I don't think I've ever actually watched a full wrestling match like that in my life. I think I've seen a few rushes and things like, but I don't think I've ever actually watched one. I guess I don't know what I'm missing.
You're either into it or you're not. It's cool. Yeah. This is what I like. See, okay. Like, I'm also a hockey fan. All right. And one of the things I love about being a hockey fan is we don't care if you don't like our sport. Okay.
Right.
It's like, like soccer fans are like, it's the most popular sport in the world. You should be into it. The rest of the world loves it. It's a wonderful sport. Hockey fans are like, you don't want to watch the game? Fine.
Yeah.
More for us.
Exactly.
And I feel like wrestling's like that. You don't want to watch? Hey, that's fine, man.
It's okay.
Everybody live their life. It's cool. I'm going to be watching. Hey, means that when I'm getting that stream from Peacock, it's not going to be all choppy because it's not going to have a lot of interference.
Exactly. That's fine. That's fine. It's all good. All right. Well, let's talk about the entertainment news before we get to the streams and movies this week. Alec Baldwin back in the news. What you got?
Oh my God. This case just will never end. All right. So Alec Baldwin, as you probably know, brought a lawsuit for malicious prosecution and civil rights violations against the New Mexico prosecutors who tried him for involuntary manslaughter. And that case was dismissed by a judge this week.
Oh,
but it's still not.
Oh my God. Just keeps going.
So it was dismissed because there hasn't been any activity. And the judge said, well, do something or it's over. And Baldwin's attorneys, as a matter of fact, his lead attorney immediately came out and said, we haven't taken any action on the case because we are, quote unquote, in good faith settlement discussions with parties to the lawsuit. And we're going to refile if we can't come up with a deal.
Oh, wow. Okay. So this was all a leverage tactic to get a little money out of the state of New Mexico then.
Well, okay, can I just, okay.
All right. Yeah.
They're hanging their hat on the fact that, the prosecution screwed up the case. Okay.
Right.
That it was dismissed because all these allegations came out that the police and the prosecutors withheld evidence from the defense. And part of me says, okay, I understand. I'd be really angry about that too. And the other part of me would be like, this is over. Walk away. Move on with your life. But no, these rich guys like Alec Baldwin always want to feel like they put the final screw in you. And I'm telling you, he better be careful, because if he goes to court again, I would defend myself to the fullest extent of the law and then some.
Yeah.
And I would trash him in some way.
Yeah.
Alec, you're innocent. Walk away.
Yeah.
It's over.
Yeah.
It was a horrible moment in your life. I understand you should feel horrible, and I know you feel horrible, but it's over. It's time to heal. It's time to walk on, because, this is what gets me about the case too. This is now about him. It's
Right.
not about what
Right.
happened.
Right. It's not.
This doesn't change what happened.
Yeah.
It doesn't change. It was a horrible accident. It
Well,
doesn't.
and you'd think that he'd want it to kind of just, fade off into memory now instead of continuing to pick at that scab. But we'll see. But we'll see where it goes. All right. Well, we'll keep an ear to the ground on that. What's next? What do you got next here for us?
Well, we have Eddie Murphy. Eddie Murphy's making some news. This is gonna, again, because everything old is new again. Eddie is out promoting his new movie, which we're going to talk about next week. It's on Prime Video. And while he was promoting that, he said, yeah, I'm almost done with my voice parts for Shrek 5. And then we're going to immediately go into making the Donkey movie. And everybody went, what? There's going to be a Donkey movie? Yes, Eddie Murphy just spilled the beans.
Oh.
Yeah, we know Shrek 5 is coming. We know that they're working on it. I'm actually kind of surprised that they're still working on it at this late date, but okay, that's fine. And then he said, yep, we're going to go immediately right into my Donkey movie, the spin-off movie about his character and all the crazy things that happen in his family. So, here we go. You're going to get more. If you're a Shrek lover, oh, man, the next few years are going to be good for you. The Shrek 5 comes out at Christmas next year, and Donkey, I don't know, maybe 2028.
Jeez, I can't even. I think I watched Shrek 2. I think was as far as I went in that series. So I mean, but it's still popular. It's still huge. It's still So you might as well ride that train till the engine falls off the tracks at that point. So as long as long as they're willing to sign the checks, I guess that's what it is. All right, cable news is coming, or cable is coming to an end. I mean, really, it's a big seminal deal here. This is the big news. E is on an X. E is for exit.
Yeah, E News, which in many ways pioneered entertainment news coverage. This was a big deal, and they're ending E News, the TV show, on September 25th. It's over, because everything that they used to bring to you on cable, you can get on the internet, you can get on an app, you can get on your phone. And, and for me, can I just go off for a minute?
Yeah.
This makes me sad because, I remember when E came about, when E first premiered back in the early 90s, it was the CNN of entertainment news, and it covered entertainment news in a very serious way. It brought you a lot of industry news in ways that wasn't out there at that time. Yeah, they brought you a lot of gossip stuff too, and they did a ton of red carpet events. But this, when I was breaking in and I was trying to make a business for myself and make a career for myself, my dream was to do it like that. My dream was to maybe even be on E! television. And I think that they really did inspire almost everything that you see these days when it comes to entertainment news.
Right.
It really started with them, and now it's going away.
Yeah, and I think that's just, again, a failure to adapt, a failure to recognize how things are changing, and they could have changed their whole presence. They could have gone the whole TMZ route and done online stuff, and it's just, and of course, in hindsight, you could see all that, but at the time, it's hard to, when you've done something a certain way, and for 20 years they did it a certain way, and it's been the last 10, 12 years that things have really kind of changed. It's that's just how it is. Like you said, everybody's getting their entertainment news on TikTok and Instagram and Facebook and whatever TMZ site or whatever. But it's just, again, it shows you how you have to adapt, or die, right? There's no Sears and Roebuck anymore. There's no JCP.
No,
those were.
I think there's only one.
Right. I mean, those were monolithic kind of things, and yet Kodak. What happened to Kodak, right? I mean, so these things change, and if you don't adapt, this is what happens.
Yep. So they're gone. See ya.
Yeah.
Now E-channel is basically repeats of Sex and the City, and I don't even know what else they got. I just every once in a while I'm flipping by and I'm like, oh, that's what they show now. Okay.
It'll be another
but it
rerun
used to
channel.
be fun.
Yeah.
They used to have all this great stuff. Like I'd wake up on a Saturday morning and I'd see the news recap, and they would do all sorts of stories about the paparazzi. They do all sorts of bios of different people. It used to be really cool.
Yep.
Used to be.
You're starting to sound like an old man. All right. Final story. Happy Gilmore. We talked about it last week. You didn't get a chance to see it because they didn't give out any screeners. But now it's number one. It's in fact, it's so big, it's bigger than big. Give me the rundown on Happy Gilmore 2.
Yeah. And I did catch up with it, and it was okay. But obviously a lot of people were hoping to see it because it debuted at number one on Netflix. It actually set a new Netflix record last weekend. It debuted with a record high 46.7 million views. And that's pretty much like Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I think they may even include Monday on that. And that's the most ever for any Netflix movie debut. And if you want to put it in terms of ticket sales, okay, so views in their world are calculated and defined as total hours watched divided by total runtime. So a movie like Happy Gilmore, which was about 2 hours, I think that's safe to say, it had something like, what does that come out to? Like 23 million people would have bought tickets to it at $10 to $15 a pop. I mean, holy smokes.
Yeah.
That would have been big.
That's a barn burner. Yeah, because the original Happy Gilmore made what, 40 million?
Yeah, the original Happy Gilmore made 40 million, and it rode the coattails. So it came in at number 3 over the weekend with 11.4 million.
Oh, because people were like getting nostalgic and watching that one first before they watched the second one, or vice versa. Yeah.
For some reason they felt they had to watch the first one so the second one wouldn't fly over their heads.
Right.
No. Don't worry. No. That was not going to happen. Okay. Okay. Happy Gilmore 2 is a goofy, silly, traditional Adam Sandler movie, and it's got its raucous, gross out stuff, and there's some funny stuff, and it's kind of corny, and in the end, you're like, okay, I enjoyed it.
All right. What did you think, waffle wise? What do you think? Couple waffles?
Yeah, I'll go 2.5 waffles.
2.5.
Hey, why
okay.
not?
All right. Okay.
I've seen worse.
Yeah, because 50 Shades of Grey. All right. We're moving over to the movies and the streams. Yeah. We got about 4 minutes here, so start from wherever you want to start and give it to us.
All right, let's start with The Bad Guys 2. This is the big animated film that's out this weekend. They used to be criminals. They used to be, heist experts. But now they've reformed. They're trying to live their life on the straight and narrow. But all that is put in danger when they are hijacked by the bad girls. There's another gang out there.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, and listen, it's goofy for kids. It's not going to get too deep. It's never going to be like some really intelligent, erudite kind of parody of heist movies. Although they throw some of that in there, I'll give you that. I think that's kind of funny. I think artistically it's very interesting. It's not like the typical CGI. It's very colorful in a very good way, and it'll giggle you along the way. Kids are going to enjoy it a lot more than adults. I'm at 2.5 waffles.
Okay. All right. Well, I hadn't even seen Bad Guys 1 yet. So, I guess I got to get caught up on all my animated movies this weekend. Okay. Where does that take us then for the rest of the stuff?
That takes us to Liam Neeson in The Naked Gun.
Oh, God.
Yes, we have rebooted The Naked Gun. And I know, I had the same reaction. I was like, oh, God, this is going to be horrible. And it turns out it's not as bad as I thought it would be. The whole story is that Liam Neeson is Frank Drebin Jr., and he has to solve a case in order to save Police Squad from being shut down and, of course, get justice for his newfound lady love, played by Pamela Anderson. And it starts off strong. It starts off just like the Naked Gun movies and TV show used to be. All the really great sight gags, all the goofy, twists on the language, and people acting really silly and goofy. I feel like it runs out of steam. It almost like just kind of runs out of ideas. It runs out of, kind of that opening energy and that opening salvo of, we're going to do this just as good as the Naked Gun. But when it's all said and done, I'm at 2.5 waffles for the Naked Gun as well.
Okay. All right. Well, I mean, it's I don't know. Leslie Nielsen is Frank Drebin. This is supposed to be his son, right? So, it's one of those things where you're like, okay, all right. Well, we'll see. Again, Liam Neeson not done himself any favors with kind of his shenanigans off the screen, and I think that's probably hurt him a little bit. We'll see. I mean, I won't be sheckling out any money for it, but I might wait for it to hit the stream. That leaves us to the next Trainwreck episode, which is that Netflix docuseries about all the crazy stuff that goes on out there. And this one is Trainwreck Storm Area 51.
This to me was the most surprising of this Netflix series. That's why I wanted to bring it out today, because you know what? It takes something that could have been completely mocked. It could have been just a joke fest. It could have been everybody just, trying to find the best one-liners when they're getting interviewed, kind of like we saw with the Ship movie a few weeks ago, right? But this one actually gets kind of deep, and it really kind of, I think, shows you the strife that was going on, and I think some of the danger of what was going on. If people remember, some dude just started a joke. He said, "Why don't we storm Area 51 to find out what's in there?" And millions of people said, "I'll be there." And all of a sudden, the military's freaking out. People who live in town are freaking out. Some people who live in town are going to try to make some money off of it. And this whole thing becomes a battle between the dude who started the joke and the woman who owns, who you've probably heard of it, the Ale Inn in Area 51, because they started competing and trying to put together like a festival. And it gets ugly. I'm at 3.5 waffles. I was on the edge of my seat because I know what happened in the real storm, but I wanted to see what happened between these two and all the battles they were going through. And it really got me thinking, what would really happen if like 1,000 of us just got together and decided we're taking over? It could have been wild.
That could have been wild. That could have been a wild time for sure. All right. Well, Willie Waffle, wafflemovies.com. We're out of time for today. Thank you, my friend. Folks, we'll see you on Monday. Be kind, love one another, live well. Have a great weekend. We'll see you then. When I first saw this whole thing, this whole meme that was going around about, we're gonna storm Area 51 and all this kind of stuff, and I was like, wow. I said, what are they going to do if 10,000 people show up? Are they going to shoot them all? Are they going to, arrest them? How's that going to, I'm like, part of me, the libertarian in me, the kind of semi-anarchist libertarian says, you go, man, you do,
right?
And at the same time, I'm like, oh, that's going to be a hot man. And then it turned out to be a hoax, because at first everybody thought it was super serious. And then it was, I don't know. It's so crazy. But yeah, the Alien Inn is the place in Area 51 there that is outside of Area 51. That's like, oh yeah, we've got it all. And they try to make some money on this whole deal.
Yeah, they sure did. And, and the seriousness is what really got me, because, what you see during the documentary, it's 2 episodes. They're each about an hour long. And what you see is that, there are some people who are showing up, like dangerous people showing up. These guys are getting phone calls at night, basically threatening them, saying, you better not cave because I'm showing up with my AK-47 or whatever they had. I mean, it was really scary. There were some scary dudes involved, and I'm with you. I mean, there's a part of me that's like, you know what? Good. Like when you think about this, think about this. What if 1,000 people show up and they storm the doors of an insurance company that's denying claims and people are dying?
Yeah.
Or, hey, we all get sick of Amazon and we storm their headquarters. The anarchy could reign here.
Oh yeah.
It's and I think that's what the military saw.
Yeah.
And the military is very serious. They're like, this is a military base. You can't just come running in. I mean, they had orders to shoot people if they had to. This could have been, I agree. Not only could this have been a bloodbath, but remember, they're in the middle of the desert with no services. All right. People are not going to have enough water. They're not going to have enough food.
Right.
They're not going to have cell phone service. I mean, this could be a mass humanitarian disaster.
Right.
Like, the possibilities were frightening as you watch this and you start to comprehend what was really going on beyond just the silly joke of, oh yeah, we're going to show up, we're going to run at the gates.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That sounds like a good way to get shot. That's all I'm saying.
Oh yeah.
So
yeah.
All right, Willie. Well, that's 3.5 waffles, by the way. What are you waiting for next week?
Well, next week is, I don't know if I'm waiting for it, but Freakier Friday is next week, the sequel to Freaky Friday. We have the pickup is the Eddie Murphy movie that's on Prime Video. So we're going to talk about those two. And then I know there's something else out there. I just can't remember what's going on. Oh, well, King of the Hill is back on Hulu. I might check that out.
Oh, King of the Hill. Okay. That's been out of circulation for a while. All right. You finished Ballard yet?
I have not finished Ballard yet. I have failed there. I got distracted because, a couple weeks ago, Star Trek Strange New Worlds came back with season 3. Oh God, I love this show so much.
So hyped.
So
by
that kind of got a lot of my attention, got a lot of my viewing. Also the new Netflix series WWE Unreal, where they go behind the scenes to show you how they make the sausage. I got sucked into that too. So I got to find my Ballard time.
Yeah, you got.
And it's not going to be not going to be this weekend because as I mentioned, SummerSlam is this weekend.
I dipped back into the old catalog and I started watching the Expanse again. I don't know, it's like the 7th or 8th time I've watched the whole thing. I don't know, man. It's just one of those things where it's like comfort food. You go back to it and you're like, this is so freaking good. Anyway, it's just one of those things where you get to it and you're like, this is amazing. So anyway, all right, Willie Waffle, wafflemovies.com, which doesn't exist anymore. God, I gotta stop that.
That's all right.
It's so tough. Willie, thank you, my friend. It's good to talk with you. We will catch you. Well, you could direct that site now to E, right? Now you could send it to E to, oh no, never mind.
They don't need my charity.
All right. Thanks, brother. I'll talk to you next week. Thanks so much.
All right, talk to you later.
Folks, we're out of time. We got to fly. Be kind. Love one another. Live well. We'll see you next weekend or next week. Have a good one.
We've shed our terrestrial radio skin, and now we are slimy lizard internet people. It's the Michael Duke Show.